In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro discusses the current political landscape in the United States, focusing on President Joe Biden's approach to the upcoming election. Shapiro highlights the traditional strategy of running to the extremes during the primaries and then moving towards the center in the general election to appeal to independent voters. However, he notes that Biden is deviating from this strategy by leaning towards the far left of his base, influenced by voices such as Bernie Sanders and Pod Save America. Shapiro points out that Biden's shift to the left is causing him to lose support among independent voters, as evidenced by recent polls showing a swing towards Donald Trump among this demographic. He emphasizes that the main reasons for Biden's declining popularity are perceptions of a poor economy, his age, and a disconnect with the concerns of the American people. The podcast delves into the role of Biden's advisors and the influence of the far left within his administration. Shapiro criticizes the narrative pushed by some of Biden's allies, such as former Obama staffers, who advocate for a more extreme stance on issues like the Israel-Hamas conflict. He highlights the impact of this approach on Biden's approval ratings and voter motivation. Shapiro discusses the recent NPR Marist poll, which shows a decline in Democratic approval of Biden's handling of the Israel-Hamas conflict. He challenges the notion that Biden's position on this issue is the primary factor driving his approval ratings, pointing to broader concerns about the economy and leadership. The podcast also addresses the tragic incident involving the death of 7 aid workers from the World Central Kitchen in a friendly fire incident in Gaza. Shapiro criticizes Chef Jose Andres, who accused Israel of deliberately targeting the aid workers, despite evidence suggesting it was a case of mistaken identity. He highlights Andres' history of making uncalibrated statements about foreign policy issues, including previous accusations against the United States and Israel. Shapiro emphasizes the importance of understanding the complexities of friendly fire incidents in war and the dangers of spreading misinformation that could benefit terrorist groups like Hamas. He criticizes the tendency to equate accidental incidents with deliberate attacks, noting the strategic advantage this gives to Hamas in the ongoing conflict. Shapiro continues by addressing the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. He criticizes President Joe Biden for his lack of a clear foreign policy stance on the issue, pointing out that the United States has a vested interest in supporting Israel against Hamas, which is an Iranian terror proxy threatening American allies in the region. Shapiro also delves into the situation in Ukraine, where President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned that his forces may have to retreat if the stalled aid package from the United States is not approved soon. Shapiro questions Biden's handling of the situation, highlighting the need for the U.S. to support Ukraine in its fight against Russian aggression. Moving on to domestic issues, Shapiro discusses the rise in crime in New York City and criticizes Mayor Eric Adams for his failure to address the issue effectively. He highlights the release of migrant squatters arrested on gun and drug charges, pointing out the flaws in the city's approach to crime prevention. Shapiro also touches on the economy, noting that many Americans are dissatisfied with the current state of affairs. He criticizes Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell for his optimistic outlook on the economy, pointing out that inflation remains a concern for many Americans. In the realm of healthcare, Shapiro criticizes President Biden for teaming up with Senator Bernie Sanders to promote efforts to lower healthcare costs. He argues that Sanders is a useless politician and questions Biden's decision to align himself with the senator on healthcare issues.